Hello YouTubers, this is the noobifier. With the new flight model changes, I'm back to zero muscle memory and relearning how the ship rotates. If you watched my flight test of the Xi'an Scout, that was a fixed loadout. You may have noticed that I was hunting or chasing the pip a lot more than normal. Also, I noticed that as the target passed by, I would normally be able to flip over, aim, and hit reliably on the flip shot. I'm now less reliable with that, and it happens less frequently. However, that back shot is achievable through muscle memory and through practice. For the first time since patch 2.4, I've decided to apply curves to dampen the output on parts of my controller range. I fly dual stick, and originally I made the decision to use only the default 1-to-1 and just become used to it. I would get familiar with using the default, which would simplify setting up from patch to patch and also give me an appreciation for the default player experience. When I tried to do this for patch 3.10 PTU, it wasn't the same as before. I've thought about it to try to figure out what's different and what's changed with this patch. These changes I'm talking about today are personal, so I present the information purely for discussion. I believe that each pilot needs to come up with their own settings, so please don't just apply what I have and think that that'll make you a better pilot. My settings have already changed several times during this PTU because the developers keep tweaking the last patch, and that changed the flight. Here's what I think is going on and what I did to address it. Due to the new changes in jerk, the thrusters aren't and won't have instantaneous effect. That's new, and that's what I think is different. If I apply my regular changes in a direction, that little bit of extra delay is causing me to overshoot, and it's causing me to search. I'm sure that if I invested a bunch of time, I could just, as before, get better, but the curves have actually helped me, and this prompted today's guide. By default, as I said, there was a 1-to-1 ratio, meaning from 0 to 100% stick movement, your experience would be mathematically proportionate. You move 5% on the stick, and you see 5% in game. A flatter line, like a 0.5-to-1, results in a muted performance, meaning you need to move the stick more to get the same effect. This usually gives a little bit more precision, similar to how reducing the DPI on a mouse would be. A flatter line would also mean that your 100% movement can only ever result in, let's say, 50% of your effect, and this is why you would never just apply a flat line, but more on that later. A more aggressive line, like a 2-to-1, results in a very snappy performance, meaning you need to move less to get the same effect. This usually gives the user less precision but is snappier, and that's similar to how increasing the DPI on a mouse would be. A steeper line would also mean that you would achieve 100% in the first 50% of your stick movement, which is why you would never just apply a steeper line. And that's where the curve comes in. The start and the end of the curve are at 0 and 100%, but based on the shape of the curve, you can adjust your performance. There are two basic types of curve, a J-curve and an S-curve. I'm going to say that adjusting the curve too aggressively can totally break your ability to fly, but don't be afraid, you can just reset to default and try again. In starcitizen, you can very quickly apply J-curve in 1/10 increments on the slider. A flatter to upward slope J offers more fidelity in the initial range from neutral. A J-curve that starts sharp and then tapers off trades fidelity for a snappier feel. I wanted to achieve an initial softer feeling, so I tested a 1.2 and then I ended up using a 1.4 J-curve. Again, this is personal, and I believe that I will gradually try to reduce this to 1.3, 1.2, and 1.1 as I continue to play. starcitizen will also let you fully customize the curve, and you may end up wanting to test an S-curve. You do this with your mouse by clicking in the curve, and you accept the warning. Then you can move the individual nodes where you want them. You can also delete them using the delete key. You're going to need to do this on each axis of each device individually, and unfortunately, for those who are OCD, you can't just save and apply the curve globally. It's important to remember that curves are important to dial in your experience when using joystick-based controllers. In my experience, curves were even more important when setting up pedals, especially if you're using a fixed loadout, and even more important if you use a thumbstick-based controller due to its very short range. And that's it. A lot of information in a short package. If you have questions or comments, please post them in the comments. Hopefully this video helps you to quickly dial in your starcitizen experience. Please use the guide when helping new citizens, either by linking it to them or dropping it in your org's Discord. Thank you for your support and watching these videos that I make to keep you entertained and informed. Fly safe, and I'll see you in the verse.